This is the spookiest Halloween video I could muster. Boo. Happy Halloween. In all seriousness, I want to share some of my thoughts on the past month or so. What a rollercoaster journey of emotions it has been. From the early access highs with functioning servers and none of that repetitive fatigue of grinding levels in a bathroom, to whiplash lows when the servers exploded and the game was unplayable, all the way to where we are now and have been for the past few weeks, with Payday 3. Stagnancy and silence. When adopting the live service model, Starbreeze didn't half embrace it in premise, releasing a bare-bones experience in desperate need of updates, quality of life improvements and new content, but with none of the follow-through. It's been a dead service, so to speak, with an initial major bug-fixing update planned for October the 5th, turned into a split update with some console-specific fixes, and then a delayed update, but don't worry, mid-October we would see something, or not. A turbulent nightmare for everyone employed at the company, and let me tell you, for everyone who was even half as invested in this game as I was. Being completely candid with you, it's been crushing. I've built up this game in my head over 8 years or so, then I had initial tastes of it earlier in the year where I felt like almost all expectations were being met, so seeing where we are now, it's difficult to put into words. The come down has been seismic. It's funny because I made a video on this channel with the exact same title just under 10 years ago. It has less than 1,000 views, and is just an awful, terrible creation with no direction and little purpose, consisting of essentially me whining about not really wanting to boot up and play Payday 2 about 3 months after launch. And here we are, 10 years later, except this time I actually have the ability to create a script that is at least slightly more coherent. To be clear, I still stand by my early impressions. I think Payday 3 has all the groundwork to be a great game. I know why it initially blew me away. The visuals, the game feel, most of the new mechanics all did land for many of us, and I'm not alone in still loving the gameplay loop at its core. But, much like those initial impressions, these elements are all surface level deep. We never had the chance to test progression, content repetition didn't seem like a big deal in the moment, and we hadn't already solved the skill system. When we get into the core of Payday 3, it has lost a lot of its predecessor's charm. The heists are all in that 5 to 10 minute range. There are no epics like Framing Frame or Big Oil, and the stakes feel surprisingly low for a crew that have just been reduced to broken remnants after a major attack. For the most part, it's bloody easy too, not helped by the many unintended interactions we can use to trivialize most situations. Just see my Breaking Payday 3 video for reference. I'm also huge into the lore of Payday, as many of you know, and whilst I generally enjoyed the story and its presentation, it's hardly even a prelude. It just about ties the loose ends of Payday 2's lost tapes. And again, compared to Payday 2, there is a much clearer narrative here, but I actually feel that that's working to the game's detriment. Payday 2 was full of mystery. Who was Hector? Why were his jobs all so scuffed? What was the elephant's part in everything? Could he really be trusted? In Payday 3, the antagonists are clearly laid out from the start. Hell, we even get to witness their behind-the-scenes meetings via the cutscenes. This kills most of the intrigue. I mean, it's almost literally dead. They ran over Shark and shot Garnet in the head at the end. I know Mr. John Concord is now set up as a major character and villain, but he is so far removed from everything we've done before, it's tough to care at the moment. And don't get me started on the missing details. Why the hell are Vlad and the Butcher just back without any further context? For those of you unaware, Vlad is essentially a space Ukrainian with potentially supernatural powers. There's just no explanation as to where we stand on everything Payday 2 related. Bane is referenced and never mentioned again. It's pretty telling that the story skipped a few beats when it still isn't clear which Payday 2 ending was actually canon. And then we have a number of credited characters like Gage and Satagi, who are just names in a menu at the moment. Without the charm of the admittedly low-budget web series to back everything up, Payday 3's story still feels like it could be fanfiction and doesn't pack the punch it really needed to when going for this more hands-on storytelling approach. So, a really mixed bag there, even for one of the largest Payday lore advocates. Beyond that, the menus are rubbish and unclear, the UI needs an update, everything is poorly organised, and there's virtually no customization for all of this. Internally, we were told to expect improvements to these systems right up until launch, so I was very reserved in my criticism of it. But those improvements seem to actually be tied to quality of life updates that are in the pipeline, which again adds to that feeling of Payday 3 being slightly undercooked. On the RPG front, hidden away, there are actually dozens of fun and interesting builds to play around with. The endless frag build, immortal medic setup, and even pseudo dodge stun builds are all possible, but only the most hardcore have ever bothered with them, as all you need is the core of a half decent grit edge armor build, and you're already good to take on virtually any challenge the game has to offer. Now, that's just really getting to grips with the areas of the game I think need improvement. It's not touching on the missing features, particularly in the quality of life department, that have been lost from Payday 2 to Payday 3. The stock excuse there is that Payday 3 was built from the ground up in a new engine, and Payday 2 had 10 years to iterate on its concept, so you need to give the sequel some time. But that doesn't garner a whole lot of sympathy from me. You can't throw 10 years of constructive development in the bin and start fresh. The expectation is that those lessons are already learned when putting together a new game, so I don't think the community is being overly entitled when they say they're shocked and disappointed that Payday 3 just chose to ignore them in favour of the deja vu of the exact same iteration process throughout the years. That sort of attention to detail would have gone a long way, and keep in mind so many of us didn't start with Payday 2 in 2013 or even earlier with Payday the Heist. I read my comments. Many of the biggest Payday fans right now picked up the second game between 2018 and 2022, so I've come to expect that level of quality, polish and content density in their Payday game. They're not going to be of the mindset of, oh well, Payday 2 was just as threadbare at launch and look at it now. But of course, all of this has been made so much harder by the game's updates being stuck in purgatory and awaiting console approval. Without a single update since launch, first of all, game-breaking bugs have gone unpatched. The weapon progression system has been turned into a joke, stealth has devolved into a litany of unintended interactions, and most damningly, actual public matchmaking has remained barely functional. I'd love to know how many of the strangely obsessive dead game crowd feel that way because they're not finding any games online, believing it to be due to a lack of players, when in fact, it's because public matchmaking still hardly works. That has been deeply damaging in my opinion, as, a co-op multiplayer game that's not properly worked for its first month is unlikely to retain its player base. The second problem for me is that without an update, the game has felt stagnant. Update 1 will not contain the massive overhaul some of you are hoping for. It really will be a bug fix-centric patch that hopefully fixes the most major and game-breaking issues that have arisen since day 1. But what it will do for many, myself included, is showcase that this game can move in a positive direction. That's why getting this update live is so pivotal for me, and why I experienced a huge wave of relief when Starbreeze finally shared that it was out for console approval and should be released soon. Also, learning why it was delayed gave a lot of context to their decision. As I said online, an update that reset everyone's progress would have been much more disastrous given the technical issues at launch. With patch 1.0's release, we might finally be able to move in the right direction and start to build up the player base again, instead of constantly posting charts of its decline online. As an aside, yes, I've seen the Steam charts, yes, I've seen the share price, it's ugly viewing for anyone invested in the game or the company. But I also feel that there's a strange schadenfreude emanating from the people who gleefully post the Steam player charts and share price online. It's reductive, as it doesn't tell the full picture, and has that deflationary impact on people who are just trying to enjoy the game as it currently stands. My perspective is that it only serves to make the person posting it feel smart, self-righteous, and superior, and again, as someone with a master's degree in economics and a full-time job in finance, there's a lot more at play here than meets the eye. Let Tobias and the other C-suites worry about the finances. We should just be working towards sharing our thoughts and opinions on the game's systems so that it can eventually become what we always wanted it to be. Personally, I still think that going full crossplay and cross-progression, meaning the PC and console versions remain in update parity, was overly ambitious at launch. It's an incredibly complex process that's massively delayed the first update and feels like Starbreeze trying to run before they can walk. Adding these features a year into the game's life would have made much more sense in my eyes, but I can at least respect their commitment to the policy. Console players will not be left behind this time. If it was going to happen, it would have happened already, so I wouldn't worry about that. But it has of course made this first month of the game's life absolutely painstaking for us. I can't believe how quickly I started covering mods and glitches, as to be frank, I've done just about everything else I can creatively within the confines of the game's launch. So that should tell you just how desperately we need updates to the game. And I think the key is going to be a smooth update cadence moving forwards. We need to see that Payday 3 is going to evolve from week to week and month to month, which needs the entire console certification process to be ironed out, and updates have to be ready to go far earlier than if they were just being pushed on Steam. What I'm personally hoping is that the design team has been able to work multiple updates in advance over the past month of silence, meaning they're already ahead of the update cycle moving forwards, allowing the game to feel alive and tended to properly at last. I'm fairly confident that assuming the certification issues are ironed out, and they have done the foundational groundwork to prevent updates being catastrophically risky and destroying player progress, we can move forward from here. Again, it's just another example, as we saw with the servers at launch, of extreme naivety and an overestimation of what they could handle from the get-go. On the positive side though, what I have to say is that the devs are listening. In Mio, we have a genuinely responsive and pragmatic lead designer who's proven willing to pivot on design decisions and is actively looking to develop and improve the systems we have concerns about, such as the beleaguered progression. If they're given the freedom to work without technical limitations, I have a hell of a lot of faith in what they can do. I expect Update 1 to release at some point this week. If it doesn't, we might be back to square one on the certification process, at which point it'll be much harder for me to predict the future of this game. I anticipate there will be free content gifted to the community in light of these mistakes. It's going to be essential to win back many of those spurned by their inability to play the game and enjoy it since launch. Payday 3 can recover from what has been a worst case scenario launch. I honestly think that if we didn't have the server issues week 1, and if updates have been rolling out since early October, we'd see a fanbase much less critical of many of the game's systems. It's that seeming lack of any change that makes problematic systems like the slow and limiting challenges feel so oppressive. Once the game starts to grow and evolve, I think we'll see a similar change in player sentiment. However, I do believe that Payday 3 is not the incredible game it could be right now. There are flashes of brilliance, and there are moments of charm, but it still needs a whole lot of building upon. My current feeling on the game is that it's vacuous, like bloody Rom the Spider. It's a game blessed with an incredible setting, cast, and with excellent foundational gameplay, but full of gaping holes, and these need to be filled sooner rather than later. I still believe Payday 3 can and should become a brilliant game, but I feel like, in hindsight, the team were poorly prepared for its launch, it all came far too soon, and the next steps to move it towards where it needs to be are now a whole lot tougher to pull off as a result. But I also vehemently disagree that this was anything other than a passion project for those behind its design and creation. It's a game that they adore, that they personally play and will fight to improve and cement alongside its incredible predecessor as one of the best co-op games on the market. Only time will tell, but I have faith. Until that faith is rewarded though, expect to see a little more Payday 2 from me on this channel in the coming weeks, as I'm far from done with that historic title. As ever, it's that time of the month again where I remind you of my PCs handcrafted by the guys over at Apex. They're Payday themed, but more than ready to handle whatever game you want to play. Take care, in all seriousness, enjoy Halloween. Here's hoping in 12 months time we'll be talking about how silly this whole situation was now that it's so far in the past, as we enjoy the first annual Payday 3 Halloween update. Let's see what the future holds. I'll see you soon. A huge thank you to my dedicated Patreon backers. If you want to join this crew in going infamous, check out the link below and pledge as little as $2 to see your name in the credits, or get 24-hour early access to future videos and vote on upcoming content. Take care, I'll see you all soon.